welcome back to Yoga Breakdown. It's been a while and I haven't popped on here with the Yoga Breakdown for a bit, so thank you for holding out for me and welcome back. So this time around, as you can see, I'm not really in my yoga clothes, so I'm not going to do any poses or anything like that today, but I did want to talk about yogic breath. So you may have heard a lot about breathing when you're taking a yoga class. In fact, I probably mentioned it a couple of times of how important breathing is. And so I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about the breath and the importance of the breath in your practice. And we'll talk about a couple of different types of breathing techniques, very simple, that you can do during your practice. So breath work is called pranayama. It's one of the 8 yogic limbs or yoga limbs. And we have mainly been talking about the limb of asana, which is the postures. And this is pranayama is another one of those limbs. So I'm not going to go in this video go into all the limbs of yoga and what you can do in those limbs, but we'll save that for another time. But just to know that this is another limb out of the 8 in yoga. So when I teach classes, I generally start my class getting into the breath. And what I mean by that is starting to recognize your breath and how it comes naturally. So really your natural breathing technique is by far the first order of business. Just see kind of how you've come in that day, what your breath is telling you about your day, and what it's telling you about your state of affairs. And by state of affairs, I mean physically, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, neurologically. So we have all different kinds of things hitting us at any given moment. And our breath is a real guide to allow us access into what's going on. Honestly, our minds and our brains don't always know what's going on, which seems to me so weird. So I think, let's just back that up. I think our brains know what's going on, but our minds don't. And so maybe you're watching this saying, I don't know what the difference is. And I don't think I'm the person to tell you what that difference is. But I do believe there's a part of our minds that just doesn't always connect into the areas of our brain functioning and into our body. So we may actually not know how we're feeling on any given day. So to kind of understand this, just think back to when someone's like, hey, how are you doing? Your automatic reaction is like, good, how are you? But you know, that's just an automatic reaction. If someone said, how you doing? And you actually had to think about, well, how am I doing? You probably would actually have to take a little bit of time to consider that instead of it being automatic. So that's what I'm saying, there's like a little bit of a disconnect there. Because if it was automatic, we'd be like, I'm good, my heart rate's this, I've got this going on, my stomach's going on like this, mentally and spiritually I'm either in line or I'm off. But we kind of have to use our breathing as a guide for that kind of thing. It's not automatic to most of us. I think some of us are really quite intuitive, and it is actually easier for some people than others. But I know for myself, I'm actually quite intuitive and I don't always know what's going on with me. I may know what's going on with like Susie Q or someone down the street, or like my next door neighbor. I might know what's going on with the person sitting next to me in a restaurant as far as intuition, but I may have no idea what's going on with myself. So that's what I like to do. So starting off your yoga class, starting off your yoga practice at home or wherever you are, getting into the breath. So you might take a couple of deep breaths. You may just close your eyes and listen to what that breath feels like. Listening to any, I always call it stuck energy, but looking at areas of the breath that are ragged, that aren't coming smoothly, can usually indicate something going on. And as you move in your practice, your breath will be your guide throughout your practice. It doesn't have to be that ujjayi breath that everybody talks about, which is that deep ocean sounding breath at the back of the throat. We'll talk about that today, but it doesn't have to be that breath in order to be effective. Sometimes the most effective is just simple breathing in and out, gauging where you are in each pose at each given moment, and asking yourself what you need in that moment. And then continuing to come back to this every step of the way in class. And as a teacher, I sometimes forget because I'm throwing cues out this whole time to remind people. I remind people to breathe, but it's not always, I don't always remember to say, connect with your breath. What is your breath telling you about your body today? And those kinds of things. So sometimes your teacher will have a lot of things that he or she is interested in presenting to you on that given day. So it becomes up to you to use your breath throughout your practice and really gauge that. So getting to know your breath is really important. I would strongly suggest to you that the first way you get to know your breath is to meditate. And it could literally be 30 seconds to a minute where you sit and close your eyes and just listen to what your breath feels like in any given moment. And see if it's changed throughout the day. Maybe you do a little bit in the morning, in the afternoon. You say, okay, I got a minute, I'm gonna see how my breath is feeling today, and just use that to guide. And eventually you'll train your brain to listen for the breath, to know when something's wrong, to know when something needs to be addressed, to know when you need to speed it up or slow it down. So let's talk about a couple of different easy yogic breaths. So that first one is just an easy breath. It's an easy in and out breath. It's your natural breath duration. And you honestly can just quieting the mind and concentrating on the breath can do wonders for you without changing the breath at all. And then kind of feeling the breath throughout your body. So trying to feel it in your feet, legs, belly, kind of moving up into the chakra zones, but just kind of moving up into that face, head, you know, getting into the throat areas as well, and kind of just doing a quick scan. So that's always a great way. I also like to radiate down the arms and the hands when I do a scan too. Sometimes like my wrists or my fingers will give me some information. So that's can be just something quick that you do while you're breathing. And when you're doing that, you're just concentrating your mind into those areas of your body, that's all. Specifically to like just the legs, specifically to just the belly, that type of thing, instead of the overall kind of thing. And then another type of breath is the ujjayi breath that I mentioned earlier. So that, like I said, is that deeper sounding breath. Usually it's at the back of the throat, and it's almost like you're fogging your mirror, some glasses up or something. Whereas that, but you're keeping the mouth closed while doing that, so then it becomes a, I think of it as kind of like, I do it sometime when I'm annoyed. I kind of go, like, you don't want to be like to somebody, you know, that kind of thing. You don't want them to visibly see that you're annoyed or hear that you're annoyed, but you kind of do it at the back of your throat. So if anyone out there is like me, that's the breath you're tuning into at that moment. And we can use that breath in a number of different ways. You can inhale with that breath and exhale with your mouth open. That will release some heat and often will release some pent-up energy. If you need more energy and you're lethargic or you're cold, you can inhale with your mouth closed and exhale with your mouth closed. Now, there's certain times of the year at the winter months and things like that where the ujjayi breath is just maybe not appropriate for you, or it's just, you know, you can only keep your mouth open, so you keep each of your exhales with your mouth open or something like that. So that's all fine and good. Really, you should be listening to yourself. Indication to back off, or maybe you're forcing the breath too much, would be that you feel lightheaded or strange, or your heart rate changes in some way. That's usually an indication to back off. And some indications for this would be, I would say during pregnancy sometimes. I know for the ujjayi breath, I back off during pregnancy. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But there is some constriction here in the chest area while you're pregnant, mainly because all the organs have to shift up to make room for the baby. So that could be a time where it just doesn't feel comfortable or makes you lightheaded to be breathing with the ujjayi breath. On the other hand, you could be a pregnant woman where the ujjayi breath actually feels really good, gives you some space in that area and things like that. So both of those are good to consider. Another type of breath is the alternate nostril breathing. So you may have been in a class where they do this, and it's a relatively easy practice to do. So pretty much what you're doing, and everybody's technique is a little bit different it seems, but taking your first two fingers on your third eye, so that's that area of your forehead kind of just above the brow ridge, so right in here. And then the thumb and the ring finger will just hover over that area. And you're breathing in here and usually breathing out once again. And then covering one nostril and breathing in through the open nostril. Breathing out through the open nostril. And then closing that nostril so the other one's open, and then breathing in and out through there. And then you're alternating back and forth in that way. So that is also a possibility to do. And honestly, if you have any anxiety, panic is good for this, or any constriction in the upper part of the chest, which may indicate some stress response here. This is a really good one to use, a really good one to take some nice deep breaths in and out in that way. 5 to 10 rounds usually does it for you, and then you can take some nice deep breaths in and out. So there's a couple of three options to try. Awesome. So you have 3 more options to try in your practice. They're pretty basic. There's a bunch of other ones, and I'm really not familiar with a lot of them, so I don't want to go too much into it. There's also stuff to do with like breath retention and things like that, but there's so many reasons or possibilities or conditions is a better way of saying it, where breath retention, so revisiting pregnancy, breath retention is not appropriate for pregnancy. So there's a lot of conditions where it's just not appropriate. And actually, going back to that alternate nostril breathing, if you have a cold or upper respiratory issues, it isn't always appropriate. So definitely be your best guide, or discuss with your doctor or someone in the know who would be able to give you some really good, valuable information about that. I would not be that person. So definitely do the research on your end. But yeah, breath retention isn't so great for everybody, so I'm not going to go into that in this video, but do know that that's part of it too. And if you look in your area, maybe for a pranayama course or a breathwork course, they could cover some of the breath retention exercises as well. So thank you so much for visiting my channel today. I'm so happy that I was able to have this conversation with you, kind of just a brief pass over breathing and yoga. And also, if you have any questions or comments or anything, please just write them down in the comments below, because I'd really love to hear what you have to say about the different breath work that you do and what works best for you. So thank you so much. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this. I'm so happy to be back with my yoga breakdown. We'll be back in a couple weeks to do Warrior 2. Really want to set that up, and in the coming weeks we're going to take on a lot more of the standing poses, so you can include those in your practice as well. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Namaste. Have a wonderful day.